Good afternoon from our studio in Amsterdam. Today, I'm honored to have a dear friend, David Goldsmith, when you think that, you're fixing something, maybe you're fixing the faucet in the kitchen, or you fix the fuse box, something small. And David decided, let me fix everything, everything in the world um, after having an incredible career in leadership and writing a very successful book. So, David Goldsmith, for the people on a different planet who don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself and Project Moon Hut and what led you to that. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Well, I appreciate being asked. And since you asked me, I thought back to our podcast you had done on redefining tomorrow. And I remember you were surprised we went 2.5 hours, I think, for your podcast. And then you asked me to interview this person, Ricky. And we had on her podcast, we went 2 hours and 20 minutes. And she said, "Oh,
Wow.
so we've been on for an hour?" I said, no, 2 hours and 20 minutes. She was shocked because
Yeah.
she got engaged in it. And it's
Yeah.
interesting. So I appreciate being asked on this. So who is David Goldsmith? And this is a tough one. I actually used my screens behind me and the images to tell a story for people so that they get to know me. I don't like to come out and just say who I am. Let's start with this. I'm an extremely inquisitive person. I don't know why, but when something comes up and I see something, I ask a lot of questions. And I have a saying in front of me, the smartest person in the room is the person who asks the best questions of themselves and of others. So, starting with that, I very quick history, pre-med, organic chemistry, physics, calculus, sciences. Ended up getting a dual major, was going to be a doctor, did surgery illegally, did 3 surgical cases as Dr. Goldsmith, attending physician. I found out the statute of limitations never wears out on that. My senior year of university, I made a decision to go into to change my career, and I tossed my mom to the wind because my mom definitely wanted me to be a doctor, and that didn't work out. I ended up starting my first business in uni, and I've owned over 20 around the world. Built that business on a smaller scale, started to expand out to the United States, eventually found myself living in Hong Kong for a decade. I've lived in Luxembourg. I have been in all different types of industries. Also, by accident, I started speaking. A partner of mine was asked to speak when I was in my 20s at an event. And the day before they called and they said, when's your partner showing? And I said, he's not. He doesn't care about your event. They said, we have 3 hours on the calendar tomorrow. Found out where they were, made sure I got there, and I ended up speaking. And I ended up speaking for the American Management Association for 20 years. I had three scholarships growing up, 4 scholarships with them. And so my career changed. So I've done consulting work, I've done advisory work, but I also am a builder. And that's my main focus. I build. And so over time, while living in Hong Kong, I've ended up working in over 50 countries. Speaking to me is not working. If you speak in a country, that's not working. Because you go in, you fly in, you go to the peak, you come down, you say that you've worked in that space. No. When I was in Bangladesh, I was in Bangladesh for weeks. When I was in Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Malaysia, South Africa, Botswana, Zambia, whether Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, or Colombia, wherever I was working, I had to spend some time to get to know the people, break bread with them, and learn. So I've had an unbelievable set of experiences, 3 TEDx talks, wrote a small book called Pay to Think. I'll hold it up so people could see what a small book is. It took 12 years to write and 14 complete revisions. So it wasn't a labor of love. I did it to get things out of my mind. So I don't know if that's enough. If there's anything else you'd like, you can always ask me. I'm very uncomfortable with it. And just here's your secret, Robert. Behind me, there's 2 pieces. And people always say, wow, that's an amazing background. And I say, would you like me to tell the story?
Mhm.
Almost 90% of the people say yes. So I tell the story. And in telling the story, they learn about me and they learn about what I'm involved in and what's there. So I never have to tell a story like I just did with you. So, on the phase of what is Project Moon Hut, And I don't know if you know I've lost your picture, so I'm just making sure you're okay.
I'm here. I'm here for some reason.
I didn't know if you couldn't hear me. That's the
No,
reason
no,
I
no.
said.
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. So Project Moonhot is a an initiative, and I'm going to use that word very, very carefully. Actually, I'll do it. From what you've learned so far about Project Moonhot, let's start there. You've learned a little bit. You've only heard one. You've watched a video. How would you describe Project Moonhot in your own words? Because you've been talking to people already about what we're working on. So there's got to be something exciting or different about it.
Yeah, it's confusing title because you're not. People think, well, he just wants to create a community on the moon,
Mhm.
and that's not what it is. It's an ambition to restore the ecosystem and the economic system of Earth by using as a metaphor, we're going to the moon and if we're starting from scratch, but we're going to take 40 years to restore everything. And it's very much, even though you have a nonprofit, it's a for-profit approach. Why is that keep doing that? Why it's a for
It's as long as you're there, you're there. I'm
yeah,
good.
yeah. It's a for-profit approach um, in addressing most of the challenges we had around food, energy, mineral use, mobility, everything that's happening on Earth, but restoring it in a way that's profitable, beneficial, and not only extracting 1,000 times more than you need and throwing everything away and ending up with a little bit.
Okay, that's actually an interesting way to segue into kind of sharing what it is. We don't have an elevator pitch. I wish we did. There's a story to everything. I tell a lot of stories because stories are the way people learn things. So, Project Moonhot is a an initiative that started out in a framework and has expanded since then. Because as humans learn, as we learn, we start to see dimensionalities behind them. So let me give you the directive, and then I'll break it down where it came from. Then I'll bring it forward. So that might
Okay.
help. We're establishing a box with a roof and a door on the moon through the accelerated development of an Earth and moon based ecosystem. Then leveraging those innovations and the paradigm shifting thinking from the endeavor and to improve life on Earth for all species. So yeah, we kind of took on a pretty large endeavor. So if you broke it down, we're improving life on Earth for all species, but embedded in our directive. It's not a goal. It's not a narrative. We. I don't like those terms because people set goals and they don't hit them all the time. So a
Sure.
directive, and I didn't think about it. Star Trek had a directive. I mean, so it has a different feeling behind it. And so let me bring it back to its origination and the original timing, and then bring it forward some. What happened was, and there's a series of events that I can marry them through. I was at an event speaking to this one individual, and I was telling him that I've got this book, Paid to Think, and it was if he like, he'd like a copy. The guy taps me on the shoulder and says, "I want a copy of the book. I want it today, and I want it digital." I'm not talking to this guy, so obviously he was listening to our conversation. So I sent him a copy of the book, and he got it that day. And about 2 weeks later, I received a call from Sasha Johnson, who runs Global Technology Symposium in Silicon Valley. What had happened was he had read the book, called her, and said, "You have to have David Goldsmith speak." And she said, "I know everybody in Silicon Valley. She's part of the Draper family. She runs this event." And so she called me and she said, I don't know you. And I said, "That's okay." And we ended up
He
being,
called
why?
you and said, I don't know you.
I don't know you. I know everybody in the valley. Why don't I know you?
Okay.
And so she ended up asking me to speak, and I spoke at the event. And there was a guy when I was done who sat next to me. And by the way, I ended up becoming the head judge at the Global Technology Symposium for 5 years. So I had everybody from Bill Riker and Norm Poultonson from IVP and Andy Tsao from Silicon Valley Bank. Those were all the people that were part of my judging committee, or our judging committee. But what ended up happening when I was done, there was a guy standing next to me and he says, "If you want a tour of NASA, give me a call." And he hands me his card. I'm not a space person. I never look up. but I love to experience things. So I said, sure. He said, when will you come? I said, I'm in Silicon Valley every week. I travel about 250 to 300,000 miles a year. But right now, my base is New York, Hong Kong, and Silicon Valley. So I fly in, and I go through the gate. You have to show your ID. I go to their place, and he's on the phone. He says, "Take a seat." He signals, "Take a seat." I take a seat, and a woman sits next to me, Lynn Harper, who's credited with some of astrobiology in space, her origination. And we start talking, and she said, "I didn't know your back." They thought I was a business person. No, my
Mhm.
background is organic chemistry, physics, calculus. So we start talking. Well, another person sits down who runs the portal, then my guy. And we speak for 3 hours about how NASA's really not performing, some of the challenges they're running into. They're teaching me about the moon. So I didn't get a tour. So they said, next time you're in town, I said, I'll be here next month. So I fly in again, come in. He says, take a seat. Two other people sit down, a communications guy and an engineering guy. And I don't get a tour. So the third time I end up getting a tour, they tour me through NASA, and they end up a guy. I was not impressed. I have worked with the CEOs of Maersk, Dole, Tektronix, Infosys, Wipro, Illinois Two Works, been in the most amazing factories from BMW to you think of all the things that are happening in China, and not impressed. But I sat in the flight simulator, and a guy sticks his head and says, "Would you like us to turn it on for you for the shuttle?" And I looked, yeah. And I said, "Do they turn it on for everybody?" He says, "They turn it on for nobody. It takes 5 people to turn it on." I said, "Then why me?" So they turned it on. I got to play a little bit. We went out to lunch. And while we're sitting there, I'm hearing all about space. And I'm not a space guy. I don't look up. And at one point, he says, well, we're working on what happens if a woman gets pregnant on the moon. And I think to myself, what? I said, I can solve that for you. And he said, what do you mean you could solve that? I said, you already know. Maersk worked on something for 2 years. I solved it in 3 hours. Duty Free Shops was working on something with two teams from Ogilvy. For 2 months, I solved it in 45 minutes with less information. I'm not the expert all the way down. I tend to be the person who can see the integration of things. So just kind of
Mhm.
sharing. And so he says, what? And now we're in the restaurant. And I lean forward. And excuse me to your audience, but I'm going to say it anyway. I said, send her the fuck home. And he looked at me and I said, we're not even on the moon. Why are we spending money on this? Why, let's work on getting to the moon. And I said, would you like to know how to get to the moon? And again, he looks at me. I'm not a space person. He knows this. And I said, you have to start off with a box to the roof. A small group of people who go to the moon, their job is to sit down and set up for the next set of series. So I said a box with a roof. And I went on, and then I said the next phase is an industrial park. You have to sell something from the moon to the earth and the earth to the moon. That historically, that's how we built. And there's a video on this. I said, next, you have to say extended stay. People are going to stay there longer. So it's a progression. And the fourth is community. And that's where people are really starting to be on the moon. And he looks at me and says, no one's speaking like this. I said, well, that's how you do it. And he said, who's going to pay for this? I said, everybody and nobody. And he looked at me and I said, and I used this exact example because I had a company out of South Africa. We did computational social science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics, and network analysis. And I said, Caterpillar, let's say they want to go to the moon, do mining, which you can't do, by the way. You can't mine on the moon. It's not going to happen in our lifetimes if it ever does happen. And I said, Caterpillar can't afford $10 billion to work on this, but they're interested in remote mining. He said, yeah, Caterpillar's in the moon. And I said, but they can't spend 10. But what if we can show 10 customers on Earth that would use the technology they developed so they can kind of pre-sell what they're building? Now it reduces the cost. Now they put 500 million in, and now they've got a model. And I said, then you take those 10 and 10. And I explained that out. So for about an hour, he grilled me on all sorts of questions. And he says, you've got to be at this event in Hawaii. I said, I don't want to go to an event in Hawaii. You don't understand. Buzz Aldrin's going to be there. The top people in space are going to be there. Not interested. I just wasn't. And as we're walking out, he says, we don't need a box with a roof on the moon. We need a box with a roof and a door. And I went, he got it. See, throughout history, we've never expanded through science research and exploration. That's what NASA sells. That's what the European Space Agency sells. That's what JAXA sells. We've always expanded out because we built a home. So our framing is all wrong. And that is why it can't be built. Because when you build for that, you end up with a base in Antarctica. Not a home in Antarctica, a base. So we don't use the word base. We don't use the word outpost. We don't use those words. And so I leave and I fly back to Hong Kong, and I've got a Slovakian in our office. She's 172, about 5'7" for those who don't have the translation. Stunningly beautiful woman. And I tell her the story, and she says, in my Hungarian grandmother's accent, because she's Slovakian, she says, "You're going. Trust me, you're going. It's NASA." So I I didn't have a say in it because it was going to cost me $7,000 to change my tickets. I already had tickets going out. She rerouted me. I went to this event, 50 of the top people. Buzz was there, but it wasn't a fun event. People go to space events and they see rockets and they see pieces. These are people just talking. And I am the outcast. I am like the 13th Warrior. If you've seen the movie, Antonio Banderas is trying to figure out what they're all saying because they all speak in this crazy code. And so my laptop caught on fire because I was like, what is that? What is that? And the first session I went to, a guy described what he's going to do. And I said, that won't work. And like, who are you? I said, it won't work. So we had an argument and everybody started to say, I think you're right. I think you're right. I went to the next session. That won't work. That won't work. That won't work. I had nothing to lose. I'm not a space guy. And we went through the event, and finally we were at the end, and there was 50 people in the seat. And these are people who put the rover on the comet. I mean, these are guys who've put things up. I turn, Buzz Aldrin starts to speak, and he says, wait, David, will that work? And I said, yeah, I think that'll work. But then he went on. So I turned to the guy next to me, and I said, I don't have any confidence in myself on this. I said, are these the people who can guess the moon? And he says, good question. And then he doesn't answer for a minute and a half. That is eternity. And he says, no. Why am I here? About a few minutes later, do you think some of these people will get us to the moon? 30 seconds later, he says, maybe. So I then, not confidence in myself, I don't have any confidence here. I don't even know why I'm there. I turn my seat because I want to see his face. And I say, do you think I'm the one that can get us to the moon? Without a hesitation, without a bat of an eyelash, she says, yes. I have no confidence in myself, even this moment. But he had confidence in me. So that's what we do as leaders or individuals is sometimes we take confidence from other people. I didn't see anything. And I said, let's put together a team. Well, 2 years later, we were named Project Moon Hut, a box with a roof and a door on the moon. And because NASA gave, I can't, well, what happened is we went into a meeting. We were talking about a platform we're building. And this guy has a folder in front of him, and he's never brought a folder. And I couldn't help it. Halfway through, I just said, what's the folder? And he says, it's your folder. Now, I felt like Steve Martin in The Jerk. And for anybody who doesn't know the movie, Steve Martin, a kind of crazy guy. And at that time, we had phone books. And if you were in the phone book, you were somebody. If they forgot you, you were nobody. So he yells, I'm in the phone book. I'm in the phone book. Well, I felt like I'm at NASA and they have a folder on me. Not even a computer folder. There was a physical folder. And he says, it's your folder. We've named your project Project Moon Hut, a box with a roof and a door, a home on the moon. And so we're also a project, which means that we're not a company. We're a project. How do we get a box with a roof and a door on the moon? But what happened was we started to expand on that and build that out. And I started to see the interconnectedness of everything. Now, I was meeting with this guy from American Airlines in Hong Kong every week, and we talked about how to change the world. What if we tied artificial intelligence, machine learning, 3D printing, sensor tech, robotics, genetic engineering, and we made them connect? This hadn't happened yet. Got to go back a little bit. Hadn't happened yet. What happens? Well, then I started to see that there's so many innovations that happen beyond Earth, but the space ecosystem says we take the innovations, we bring them back to Earth. That's a fallacy. So I think you've seen the video, so you've seen this. But how many innovations have been created in space?
What?
How many? Give me a number. What do you think?
Couple thousand, I guess.
Couple thousand. What would you be surprised if I told you zero?
None?
We don't
Oh, you
invent in
mean
space.
actually created in space? Okay.
Where are they invented?
Yeah, yeah, okay.
On Earth. Now, There's a process of invention. When you want to finally sell it, and your only customers are NASA or the or JAXA, the Roscosmos, or when you go to sell it, they might have only buy from one, but there could be 26 other competitors. So let's say your business doesn't sell. You don't get the contract. What happens to those ideas, those 25 other companies? Do they say, "But we put in $2 million, we're done, we're just going to toss it into the wind"? They pivot and they take those innovations, then they use them in other places. So we only hear about the ones that actually made it. We don't hear about the millions of ideas that came out of that. So you have innovations that go to space and come and stay there. That's where they're used. It's the only place, harsh environment. Then you have the innovations that come back from space and they're used in multiple places. So we have CAT scans and MRIs. The first original cordless power tool came about because Martin Marietta and Black and Decker were approached and said, we can't run a cable. I'm making this up. We can't run a cable to the moon. So can you make a cordless power tool? But every single power tool that lives on this planet today came about because someone was thinking about a different environment. Harsh environment, extreme cold, extreme heat, very far distances, radiation. They had to create something different. And you might not have know this, but the camera phone, which has changed our entire world, for scanning to health to trees to pictures, that's space technology. If you look around your desk, almost everything you use is space technology. So heat resistance in our computer systems, the GPS that gets our food and gets the materials here, the machinery that operates a space tech. When you run with your sneakers, the running sneakers started our space tech. If MRIs and CAT scans and cordless headsets, all that is space tech. So our world runs on people, not innovations that went to space. It's the innovations because they were using something as a forcing function. They said, well, if I went to space, how would I build that? So our ideation, so we ended up expanding, and we have, according to, we have the most in-depth and detailed plans right now of for Beyond Earth on the moon of anybody on the planet. That's according to Dan Dumbacher, who ran the American Institute for Astronautics and Avionics, who was on our team for a period of time. That's according to the U.S. Space Force, the chief liaison to the Congress. That's according to Andy Aldrin, who ran his father's Buzz Aldrin, who doesn't believe in anything space is really going to happen. We've designed it. We actually spent 8 months building a scale, the designs out, and then we have a scale model in front of me. It took 3,000 hours in 8 months, and then phase 2 took 10,000 hours and 18 months. So we even have that. What happened was we started to expand, and I said, well, I'm not a space person, but what if it can improve life on Earth? So there are a bunch of things that we started to develop. For example, space, you've heard of the space industry. Is there a space industry? According to you, is there existing space industry?
SpaceX is an industry, isn't it?
No, SpaceX is a logistics firm.
Well, what is your definition of a space? A whole industry around going to
Is there a
the.
space industry?
Okay.
There's no water industry. We have boating, fishing. There's no land industry. I mean, there is land, but we have construction and we have transportation. We don't have we don't have an air industry. And there's no space industry. So we changed the language. Space is not an industry, it's a geography. Where do you, if you do life support underwater in a submarine, on in a hospital on land, in the International Space Station, on the moon and Mars, it's different. So the industries are different. So when someone uses a satellite, they say they're in the space industry. No, you're not, because you don't call yourself a tower industry. You don't call yourself a cable industry. You're leveraging Beyond Earth to be able to get something out, just like you use a tower. You're in the communications industry. So we started changing the language. We even came up with this concept, moon and Earth. We've never had a word for moon and Earth. We've always called them, astronomers called them the moon-Earth ecosystem, the Earth-Moon ecosystem. It's Mirth, moon and Earth. So when you change language, you change culture. When you change culture, you change definitions. You change the way we look at our world. So our organization grew, and we started to say, well, where can we apply these things? We're not fixated on the moon, which most people in the Beyond Earth ecosystem are, or space, is how can we address those changes? So we start working on a platform taking the computational social science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics. We take that and we want to reshape and get builders to work together. So we're working on an intake engine, taking Paid to Think, actually, a part of Paid to Think, embedding it into a new way of looking at the world, bringing alliances together faster, education differently, and using governance differently. I bet you right now I'll do a test. How many governance models can you describe? Democracy being one. How many?
Oh God, I don't know, 10.
So name one, name them. You got democracy. What's another one?
Autocracy, dictatorship, communism, socialism, um, capitalism.
Now, capitalism is a form of finance, but yeah, we could call capital. Well, I'll give you that one. Give me another one.
Um, what is that non-representative democracy, where everyone votes? Um, okay, I'm stuck.
Okay. Most people can't get past seven, and you couldn't get past seven. That would be the equivalent of a plumber riding up to your house and bringing a hammer, a screwdriver, and a saw. But a plumber drives up with a van. Why do they drive up with a van? Why would a plumber drive up with a van? Why doesn't they just bring the tools they need?
Well, they have a lot of different tools that they need for any possible thing that could go wrong.
So they have options. We've defined 270 different options of how we can govern. So we can even change the governance models of how we lead. Maybe the back office is run one way, a front office is run another, but people say it's not a democracy. Well, we're a republic or democracy, or I don't want a nuclear reactor run as a democracy. I want it run as a dictatorship. People can give opinions, but someone's got to make that call. But I might want my local club to be run as a representative democracy because I don't want to do everything. I just want to vote on it. So we have different models. So that's one. We started with the platform. And next thing you knew, we started to see opportunities out there. And I'll kind of bring forward. We become an amalgamation of ideas that we seed, fund, and incubate in Project Moonhut as a nonprofit 501c3. And we get them to a point where when they would go into the ecosystem, they reshape society on a worldwide level. But we also realize that you can't shoot a rifle and change everything. Happened before that world.
Okay.
So what we're doing is in parallel. So people say blockchain will change the world or Bitcoin will change the world. No, Bitcoin is a transfer of economics between people. It's another trading form and other people making money and other people losing money. It's just another transfer. You have to simultaneously change how we live, work, and play and how we think. Project Moonhut takes them all forward simultaneously, but it's the only way to create sustainable long-term change across a worldwide effort. So I'll bring you all the way up and show you an example. We had a person on our team. It's an origination, so you could see this thread. One of our team members worked on a new transfer vehicle between the moon and the Earth. It's really interesting, but I never promoted it. I had something that felt was wrong. So one day I was talking to Hans Kunisman, who's the guy who put up the SpaceX rocket. He's the guy who put it up. He was number 4 hire from SpaceX. And we were talking, and he said, we need to speak to an orbital mechanics person. Never heard about orbital mechanics. Well, the moon and the Earth are traveling at 70,000 kilometers per hour through space. So here's the sun, and all the planets are behind it being dragged.
Mhm.
So when you go to the moon, you actually go in front of the moon. You have to connect where it hits in the future. And there's videos on this that I could share with you. It's complicated. So we set up this guy with this guy from Mike and our guy from McKinsey who built the aerospace and defense unit in McKinsey comes on. And this guy's telling them about what's going on. And I won't go into the story there, but they more or less said it won't work. There's not enough energy. It's not a value. The guy says, you got to talk to this guy about mining on the moon. Okay, have a call with this guy. We speak for 3 hours. And I said, oh, you're looking to do this, 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 and this. Now, I've worked in nanotechnology, aerospace, water and sewage construction. I've worked Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Singapore, Malaysia, Cambodia, South Africa, Botswana, Zambia. I mean, all over the world. So I was tying pieces together. And I also dropped rock. I ran a rock quarry. So I knew what he was saying. And I said, "Oh, you're doing this." And he said, "You're the first person in 23 years who understood what I was saying. And we're not going to mine on the moon." So it took him 14 hours of phone calls before, separate phone calls before he signed the NDA. Then he signed it. And for about a year, he taught me. He's the most in-depth and knowledgeable mining expert of advanced robotics in the world. And he taught me the things I didn't know. And I reshaped it into something. Now, everybody says they want to mine in the moon. Why? Because they want resources. Why? Because they think it destroys the world. Why? You can go into it. Well, we don't have a single drill bit that'll work on the moon. We need atmosphere. We actually, when you hit, you crush, you hit, you crush. You have to suck it out. We don't have any tools. We don't even have one formula that will work on the moon. And a miner knows the first thing you always do is drill holes, core samples, to know what to mine.
Mm.
We've never drilled a single hole on the moon. We don't know where anything is. And by the way, the moon and the earth are made of the same material. The same material. The moon is 8,000 miles wide. We only go 4,000 feet deep. All that material we have everything we need here. And so we are not mining on the moon. We have the most advanced autonomous robotic mining on the moon that is needed. And we can go, an average miner drops 4,000 ton per person per year. We drop a 500,000 ton per person per year. 25 years used, and the people sit on the surface and the robots work underneath. So we're raising $70 million to get that to marketplace, not because it's sustainable, not because it's environmental. It's because it'll reshape materials around the world and stop us from fighting. And there's 1.2 million abandoned mines in the world today. The only reason you stop a mine is because it's no longer cost effective. We're
Mm.
not going to stop using materials. So anybody in the ecosystem who believes sustainability, we're going to stop all of this. We drop 100 billion tons of rock a year. 100 billion. We measure going to the moon in kilograms in cost. We're not going to do that. So we started building this out, and right now we're bringing that to market. There's a space idea brought us to an idea. I realized we're not going to mine on the moon. And I said, well, why don't we focus on extraction here better? So we can take an abandoned mine that already has the hole dug, which is $50,000 a foot, could be at 200 million. It was closed in 1967. They didn't need rare earth materials. It was closed because of economics, because they couldn't extract at a level that was worthwhile. By the way, a mine can go 4,000 feet deep. And on top of that, we can go into an existing mine and now start extracting maybe the rare earth materials that are sitting there, because rare earth are not rare. They're just harder to find. And we have narrow vein mining equipment. Then I asked the guy, again, build out of it, how do you select the mine? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, we have to go into one mine. How do we know which mine to go into? Well, the
Mm.
whole variable of what mine you go into, a typical mine takes 15 to 30 years to build. We can now do it in less than 2. So now we could pick the mine that's optimum for our society and start mining that. So we started to create another entity that does trading contracts to alleviate the pressure of fighting over rare earth materials in the world. So everything we're doing is connected. And I know I'm not giving a full, complete picture. I felt like I kind of went in one direction.
No, 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 no.
But
It's well thought out.
we're not the world has what's called the 17 SDGs. So I'm going to
Mhm.
give you a test here, Robert. I don't know if I've asked you this. Name all 17.
Oh no, no, I'm useless with that. I was never a fan of the SDGs.
No, no, but
Alleviate.
can you name them? You've seen
Oh,
them.
yeah, no, alleviating poverty and education for all and food, healthy foods, water. No, sorry, can't do it.
Okay. I've asked probably about 300 people who are in the ecosystem to name the 17 SDGs, and not a single person can. Besides that, there are not 17 on that list. If you count them out, I think there's 26 or 27. I don't remember
Mhm.
the exact, because they put food, water, and safety. Well, that's 2. I mean, if you have 3 of them on there. And if no one can name, by the way, there's 169 sub goals. And by the way, they're all going to be solved by 2030. That was the deadline. And
Right.
not a single one will be met by 2030. How do you have a plan that not a single goal is achieved by the deadlines you've set? Like, I'm a strategist, I'm a planner, I'm a builder. If you set 169 goals, you should at least have one of them be hit. So there's actually six mega challenges we're facing. Now, why six? People think in threes. Three little bears, three little pigs. We use threes as a nut. We can remember three. Six works. Climate change, mass extinction, ecosystems collapses. I'll go over them. Displacement, unrest, and explosive impact. Climate change. Are we ever going to solve climate change, Robert?
No, probably not. Well, at least before the destruction becomes so overwhelming that the pain becomes horrific. No, I think we're running out of runway, and it's just kind of fighting at the margins. You see that with all the climate tech money that's gone in there, but they're not impacting climate at all. They're just unicorn chasers.
There's no impact, none at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but let's go fundamentally. I asked you if we're ever going to fix climate change, and you said no. And I'm going to say no for a different reason. Because climate has always changed to the beginning of time. So we started out as a lava rock 4.5 billion years ago. Theos hit and expanded out. That's how the moon and the earth are made of the same material. They're the exact same material. So we don't have to go there. We have it right below us. But we're not going to solve it because you can't solve changing climate. So we call them the six mega challenges, not goals. So we learn to address, adapt, and evolve to climate. That's what we do. We address, adapt, and evolve. Why do you think Greenland is called Greenland? Because it was full of ice? It's because thousands of years ago it was green. So let's change the dynamic. We're not solving climate change. We're learning to address, adapt, and evolve. It's changing. We have to figure that out. Now, that's a better scenario, isn't it? Not try to solve climate change, but to reassess how we would live in that.
It's about resilience.
So 1 degree C around the equator change, or to about 2 degrees Fahrenheit, will change all the agriculture. Spain is becoming desertified. They expect in 20, 30 years, it could be 40 to 60% desertified. Italy's crops are now being purchased. They're buying purchasing land in the UK. Why? Because the temperature doesn't fit that narrative. Spain is falling underground for a different reason. I mean, Mexico City, because they've used up all the water, but we're seeing water around the equator. So we have to learn to address, adapt, and evolve because it is happening. Okay, that's 3.5 billion people will be impacted around that circle. The next one is mass extinction. Now, how many, if you use a percentage of all species that have existed on the planet, what percentage of them have gone extinct? Take a wild guess.
75%.
99.9%.
Oh, okay.
Almost every species have always gone extinct. Think of the dinosaurs. They lasted 167 million years. We are only here 300,000 years. So we got a long way to go to get to that point. But they're always going extinct and reforming and reshaping. The Earth doesn't care about the numbers we use. So when we have mass extinction, the challenge is mass extinction harms the way we live. It doesn't mean anything to the planet because it already knows how to do this. So how do we food crops? How do we work on that? So for climate change, well, what if, I'm going to jump back for a second. What if we extracted with a typical diesel engine machine underground could use 250 to 500 liters of diesel in a 12-hour period? That's huge. So when we say we put an EV engine in, no, we're just spewing it out in another place. But if we extract, instead of dropping 45 feet of wall and extracting it, a mine is energy. What if we have narrow vein mining equipment? We take out less rock. 3% of all energy on the planet, up to 3% is used to break rock. We take out less material. We pull that out. Now it has to go to the surface. Less energy gets to the surface. Then we have to process it. Less chemicals. Less chemicals go into our environment. We still get the materials we need. So we could change our climate just by that one. That's only one idea. Now, the second one, mass extinction. Well, we have an organization that we're working on, where we're building, is to replace 6% of all agriculture worldwide. So we're working on how do we do closed environmentally systems. So we filed a patent on that also. We've got a team working on it, talking to University of UAE, talking to Templeton Foundation. How do we get that funded so we can change it? because 6% stops conflict. Because if someone's really challenged, they can't get food, that's a big issue. So that's it. The next one is ecosystems collapses. Two S's, never been done before. It's normally we have an ecosystem that collapses or ecosystems collapse. But we are now having ecosystems collapsing simultaneously all over the place. So, for example, sea level water rise. Maple's group in the Cayman Islands started to help us, and I asked them why. And they said, because we're at sea level and nothing is working.
Mhm.
So ecosystems are going to collapse border cross border because sea level is going to rise. We're not going to stop that. And we need to be able to address those things from environmental to the crops all the way through to where we live. Then we have displacement, social, political, economic, religious, technological. Again, identify, adapt, evolve to it. We have more people. We have hundreds of millions of people. I mean, 10 million people in the Sudan are still sitting in encampments. We're being displaced because of food shortages. And as I was saying, is Mexico City is dropping 30 cm, 60 cm every year because they've extracted the water underneath the pool under it. So eventually it'll collapse. It's 20 some odd million people. Where are they going to go? So displacement comes in all sorts of reasons, and we're going to continue to have those challenges, and we have to learn to address, adapt, and evolve. Then it's unrest. You might not know this, but since recorded history, we have more individual conflicts on planet Earth than any other time in history. So we're going up because all these pressures are happening, and we're also economically, we're starting to get that curve where people are starting to become poor again. 600 million people in India live in poverty. The numbers are 50% of the world lives under six and a half US dollars a day. 90%, 70, 62 to 72, there's odd numbers, live under €9 or 10 USD a day. Think about that number. When we're fighting, it tends to be first world challenges. But when 62 to 70% of the world's population lives under 10 USD, oh my God. So we're fighting over the wrong initiatives. And it's going to get worse because artificial intelligence, which is a tool, I hate people saying, do you use AI? Yeah, I've been using Google, which does predictive analytics, to type down. That's AI. That's machine learning. We've been using it for years. And the companies that we work with use them. So everybody's using AI today. But it's going to change the bottom rung of people who are trying to climb up that ladder because there's no call center anymore. And coding is changing. So the bigger fear is not the people losing their jobs at the top. The bigger fear is this part's going to get really unstable. And then the last one is explosive impact from things that humans do over the top. The amount of poison, every drop of rain has poison in it. So if you look at our flow streams, we're killing our rivers, we're killing our oceans. That's only for humans. So how do we address them? Well, here's the thing. The moon is minus 133.33 plus 122. It's far distances. There's no water. There's no oxygen. There's radiation. It's a harsh version of Earth. People love space. So we say solve for that. We're going to build it. We are going to build it. And what it does is it takes us out of our own cocoon and reshapes our thinking. Well, how would we solve that? Extreme heat 133. Well, how would you do that? And that's how we got water filtration and air filtration systems on Earth. So it's a forcing function. So you have to do it, though. You can't pretend. We're really working on it. And so all of these variables, I gave you a lot there, but they all start to reshape society. But how do you change people? Well, you have to have things happen. And until 2043 is my guess. I'm not a futurist, but the train's already moving. What's going to happen is children who are 20 years old and 10 years old today will be 20 years older. And they're going to wake up one day and say, Robert, Dad, what the fuck did you do to our world?
Mhm.
Because their world is not going to be the same one you and I grew up in. And they're going to ask different questions. How do we get along with people? How do we work together? And they'll be more open. Project Moonhot, when we started, no one cared. It's hard to sell. Today, people are joining us all the time. How do I help? Kirkland and Ellis, the largest law firm in the world, worked with us for 3.5 years to build an ITAR EAR CFIUS program, which is a national security thing you have to have in the States for technology that's way over the top. And I think it's 750,000 for them to do it for somebody for the first year. I mean, we're looking at several $1 million worth of work they donated. KPMG, Deloitte, PwC, and EY evaluated our model. We're a nonprofit for-profit, never been done this way, according to them. And when we were done, a guy at Deloitte said at the last call, he said, "This is the most exciting, I've been here for 21 years, most exciting project that's ever worked through our doors." Josh Halpern has said, "This is the most diverse cause-based initiative portfolio I've ever seen in the world." And so we're not sustainable. It's not what we are. We're not any of those words. We're individuals trying to reshape how we live on this planet. And that all comes together to the final. We have to change people's perspectives. 100 years ago, did people live on Earth? Just go back. Let's go back 100 to the year 1900. When someone said, "I live on Earth," did they know what they meant?
I don't understand the question.
Well, when I say that you lived on Earth, look behind you. What do you see? Your graphic. You see the Earth,
Mhm.
right? But 100 years ago, no one saw the Earth.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So when you said I lived on Earth, all I knew is I lived on the ground.
Yeah.
It's hard to understand that they didn't know what Earth was until we saw a picture of it from space. Do you know the concept of the Earth revolving around the sun when it was created? What year? Take a wild guess.
Um,
Copernicus.
1500.
About 1547, somewhere in
Yeah,
there.
something
So
like
that's
that.
very good. Do you know when it became accepted?
Oh, 1800s.
1800. It took 300 years.
Yeah.
But it changed society to see us differently. But what if we don't live on Earth? We live between an ecosystem. The moon keeps us at 27 degrees. The moon allows us our weather to change, our tides to move, women's biological cycles, animal biological cycles. We get up and move. The sun and the moon is a forcing function on Earth just as it exists. And it's the only celestial body in our solar system or anywhere we know which it's that combined. So we have an astronomer on our team, Mike, who for a year never said, "No, no, no, we call it the Earth Moon system, the Earth Moon system, the Earth Moon system." And one day he showed me a probe disappearing out, and you can see the Earth and the Moon as one. And he looks down and he says, "It's mirth." So now we're a different society. If you live on the moon, are you a mirther? If you live on Earth, are you an earther? If you live within mirth, you're a mirther? What is a I'm a mirther? What does that mean? If someone goes to the moon and lives there for a year, what passport do they use? What laws do they abide by? So now you have to learn governance. Which governance model do we want? If I come back and I left out of Mexico and I came back and I landed in South Korea, do I have to have a passport for that? Like, can I do that? Do I have to have a visa? Because I might have landed someplace else. And what are we going to ship from the moon to the earth? Like, what's value there? Throughout history, we never shipped big things in the beginning. We shipped spices and cloth and fabrics. So we have about 40 different things we can ship from the moon to the earth. And you always start out with the wealthy people, always, throughout history. Take a rock from the moon, slice it, bring a rock back, give it to Rolex or Piaget. They slice it. A watch is now $1 million. I'm going to invest in that. Or tattoo ink. Or Steinway pianos puts rocks at the ends, or a guitar has them as the frets. So now the world starts to normalize it. And once it becomes normal, we as society have to define who we are with one another. And it reshapes the way we think about the future. So there's no overview effect. So
You have a very scientific approach when uh, how many people will be living in the 40-year period that you're focusing on Project Moon? Because there's 1.4 billion people working in small scale agriculture. Are they all going to learn coding?
okay. So that's why space is not an industry. Take a wild guess at what you think we'll have on the moon by 2063, which is the end of our project.
No idea.
Well, you've
Probably
heard
some,
numbers.
well, probably some colonies over there for some space billionaires who want to get out of the shithole before it collapses and take their money with them and then have another place. And then I want to go to another place to, just to fill their egos.
So sorry, but that's a defeatist attitude. What we're doing in Project Moonhut will change the world. It will change it in 40 years. It will be about 2043. We're building the rails underneath. So we don't save the children. We don't save the dolphin. We don't do that. We're building another set of rails for society to live on in the future. So by saying that, you've already,
For some in society, is the number of living beings, will that be the same as now, or are we going to eliminate 2 to 3 billion people?
okay, so we're going, conflict is the one that you can't estimate in terms of a world war. I would say we're going to have 8 people, then 90. So the first 8 people land, and they are like a double wide trailer on a construction site. They're
Mm.
not there for science research and exploration. We drop the trailer. Their job is to work. Then we'll have 90 people, and that 90 people of an industrial park will have 8 tenants. Those 8 tenants will have 2 people each, and their job is to create things that can be sold to the moon and Earth to create a Mirth ecosystem and a Mirth economic system. Then we'll have 578 extended stay, and those people will have like 20, 36 different working environments that people can work in. And then we go to 1,644. So that's it. But watch this. Can I ask you your age? Is that okay to say?
74.
You're 74. You've heard about going to space your entire life. We're going to go
Mhm.
to space. We're going to be in space, and we're always 20 years away. Imagine this: a father or a mother sitting at home, and 30% of the world's population under the age of 30 believes there's no future in the future.
Mhm.
Okay, that's a huge number. Imagine running an organization with that. That's terrible. You can't build something. And all they want to do is be influencers and make money. But getting a box with a roof and a door on the moon, there's going to be a mom or a dad who will sit there and say, I never thought that would happen in my lifetime.
Mhm.
And it changes possibilities, which is no different than the Nina, the Pinta, the Centaurea. It's no different than the innovations we've had. No one wants to go to the bottom of the ocean. Sorry, it's very few people, but people live to space. Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, all these things are going to happen. It changes a paradigm that if we build the box with the roof and the door on the moon collectively, people say, well, you work with Russia. What do you mean? Well, I work with Russia. You're saying I'm working with Russian people? Well, you work. I'm Belarusian. My grandfather's Belarusian Russian. Now you're asking me, am I going to work with myself? Will you work with China? Are you asking me if I work with Chinese people? I lived in Hong Kong. I have many friends who are Chinese, and they're all over the world. They're brilliant people. You asking me if I'll deal with Xi, or if I'll deal with Putin, or I'll deal with Trump? Those are different questions. We're not political. But if we change our mindset that we're all one working together, we get enough of those individuals to collectively work on one initiative, not that's why we're nonprofit, not NASA's suggestive, not Russia's, not the European Space, but one initiative. We all work together. We get enough. We don't have to have everybody to build a box with a roof and a door on the moon. And we even have how Mercedes can get involved, and Ferrari can get involved, and Xenia can get involved. We have ideas on how IKEA can be involved, and you name the company. I use Microsoft Teams. Microsoft is helping us. They give us Teams for free. We use Carta. Carta was given to us. Then Canva. I mean, people are helping us in different ways. What happens is we start to reevaluate what's possible. And you'll hear a father or mom turn to their child and say, if we can get a box of the roof and a door on the moon, you can get your homework done. If we can get a box of the roof and a door on the moon, we can solve this.
Maybe. Still a
No.
problem to get your kids to clean their
Okay,
room.
yeah, well, that more the point is the framework shifts of who we are, how we live, and how we interact. And we have what's called a builder's stack. You've said it many times to me. The majority of things are useless. They don't work. And a lot of builders get pushed aside because of the finance people.
Mm.
You're very important. You're very important until the deal comes through, and then you get 2% for working for something for 5 years because they just push people out. But builders of the world unite. There are philanthropic builders, there's ecosystem builders, there's strategy builders. So on
Mhm.
our website, we have 8 different versions of builders. And I'm going to tell you something. If, let's say, you lived in Singapore, let's
Mhm.
say you lived in Poland, and let's say you lived let's use Venezuela in the news. You don't care about political orientation when you're trying to solve something as a builder. If that person has the answer, let me talk to them. Well, if we're solving for a box of the roof and a door on the moon, and we're addressing these 6 mega challenges, people around the world will start to get to know one another. And we don't. People who travel say, I've been around the world, I've traveled. Not the same as living in Hong Kong.
No,
I
of
was there
course
for
not.
the Yellow Umbrella. It's not the same as breaking bread in Macedonia, which I've been to many times. And it's called Macedonia, Macedonians. It's not called Macedonia to them. It's it's sitting down with someone. Yo puedo hablar en español también. I was in Cartagena and there was an event going on and I was speaking. And during the presentation, my presentation to 1,000 people, the machine broke for translation. They don't speak English. The whole audience is stop, 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 stop. And I looked at them and I said, oh, no problema. Yo hablo en español. And for 10 minutes, I spoke in Spanish, broken. And they were surprised, obviously. They were clapping. And at 10 minutes, I stopped and I said, I can't see you. No quiero hablar en español más. I don't want to speak in Spanish more because there's a difference between soy caliente and tengo calor. And the audience broke out laughing. And what that means is there's a difference between I'm horny and I'm hot.
Yeah.
And so we bring the world together to build. We bring builders unite. And so our challenge right now, we have to deal with what we have is we have finance people who have to understand and know who we are. They have to call us up and say, look, we have a donor advised fund set up. We're set up, let's use your donor advice. There's billions of dollars sitting in donor advised funds that are doing nothing. People are talking about changing the world. Well, where are you putting your money? We have a way to reshape how we produce 1.5 times the amount of food that the world needs.
Mm.
1.5 times. So what's happening to it? You have to reshape materials,
Mhm.
food, new materials. We have filed patents on new materials. One of them might be able to go from 800C to 1600C. An aircraft goes to at 800C goes to Mach 5. At 1600 and now can go to Mach 8. Or our computer tablets won't need as much heat dissipation. We're working on different ways. I mean, we have an electrical system that's archaic, and it's archaic not because of what people think. Geothermal is not everywhere. It's not ubiquitous. It's not easy to work with. It's very difficult. But imagine if every home on earth, when they built it, they put a $10 or $5 added to their mortgage. Once you have geothermal, we use the earth. It'll keep us at 23 degrees C, and then you can heat and cool it. But close to between 25 to 50% of all energy on the planet is used to heat and cool homes and businesses. We're not running out of energy. We're not running out of materials. We're not running out of food. And people say the planet is becoming overcrowded. What? Do you know if you took every single person on the planet, had them back to back, standing in line, they would only fill up Manhattan? Travel. Look down. Do you see people everywhere? No, you have vast open spaces. I look at my community, there's nobody out. I look out the window. We're not running out of space. We're not running out of food. We're not running out of materials. We're not running out of that. We're running out of the way people think.
Mm.
And that's the age of infinite in the year 2040, 2063. Infinite possibilities and infinite resources pulled together by a reshaping of how we view the future.
Perhaps.
Well, I'm
Perhaps.
I'm glad there's pessimists out there.
Per-
Our job is to convince you that potentially,
well,
but
no, I have confidence in the greed of people. So I know how finance people are. So if
But
they
that's a
see,
good thing
yeah, no, there's still
because
five
they fund
times
us because they want greed. Okay.
there's still five times more wealth than there is GDP. So no shortage of money for execution. I agree on that. How can those who are listening to this podcast or will listen to the podcast help you?
Uh, we've had an interesting journey to get to this point. When people come, there's a video online. You can go to our website and there's a video at the top, and I'll explain where that came from. Then there's a video at the bottom, and that's an hour and 43 minutes. Is when people get on, I would listen to what they're involved in, and then I'd say, well, what are you interested in? Because we want to help them find a home, kind of a box to the roof and a door. It wasn't intentional. When you run a nonprofit, and I've run several and built them up fairly, one group I went from 5 people to over 1,000 in 3.5 years, is everybody, no one works for a profit for free. Everybody works for a
Um,
fee.
yeah.
The question is, what is that fee? And it's not
Mm.
economic. It could be networks,
Yeah,
social,
sure.
feeling good.
Mm.
So I have to find that as a nonprofit and make them feel good about working with us, which is it's much more challenging than leading when you have money and you just say, do it by the weekend because that's where the money is. So what we do is we try to help them find a home. Today, if someone said they would like to help us, I'd find out what they're interested, where that is. We're working on tech transfer, AR, VR, digital twin, haptics, 3D, 4D gaming toys. We're working on a digital currency side. We're building a food narrative system. We're working on a way of time to be rechanged and how we look at time. We're building an AI platform. So we need talent, network, and capital. So talent, come with the best that you've got. Now, some people do very little. For example, the guy who does our podcasts, his name is Dor. He has done them for 6, 7 years and never asked a thing. We send it to him, we sound balance, send him back. That's the only thing he does. We have people who are very actively engaged. Networks, we want to know your network. We need to get out to the right people. We need to people, and unfortunately today, to follow us. We haven't really been doing a good job at that. We've been very quiet. And that's because I don't like some of the things that are happening in the world today. There are always going to be bad people in the world. There's always going to be greedy people. So we leverage it and we have to find the people who've got the economics, who come in and say, I don't need to make as much, but I need to make. Great. Fund us. And nothing we have is small. Nothing we have is small, unfortunately. And so on our website, you can go down. It says there's a bunch of things that we're funding, and one of them we have two more we're adding. One of them about the grocery and the food and all of that, and another one of data centers and how do we reshape them. So there's a lot of places that people can fund us, and the uh, we just want people. We want amazing people to find us, and I
Mm.
think like you, and I'm going to you changed in the past 2 weeks since we started talking, and you were very, very open and started to open up your network. And I appreciate that tremendously. Gotten back to people, we're having conversations already, and you've worked very hard. You become, when I first met you in 2020, I think it was, about right, 2020
Yeah,
TB.
around there, yeah.
I can actually tell you the TBLI. I'm a data person. So Robert Rubinstein, and let me tell you the day when it was. It
You-
was you were created on 4/6/3, so it was in American format. Yeah, that's the structuring of it. So we was June 3rd, 2020.
oh, okay. Yeah, we were still with that organization that gave up, funded by some Hollywood celebrities, that we did our mixers and webinars there. Yeah, that's how I think we first
Yeah.
met.
I've actually got it. You and I have had 124 different emails and exchanges between us and conversations.
Okay.
So you've changed because you're seeing a different approach. And we learn by seeing different approaches. So we want individuals with new ideas and creative ideas. And we want to look at, and some people we say, look, that idea doesn't fit us. Everything we do has to be worldwide. But we took mining, which I say to people, if you want to go on a date and pick up a girl, don't talk mining. Talk autonomous robotics.
Mm.
One, you're not going to get her. The other one, you might marry her.
Yeah.
we reshape what individuals are sometimes bringing to us to something that fits, but we look at it with a different lens. How do we redefine how we live on this planet over a 40-year timeline? Now, here's the challenge that people don't get and you'll get. Take your age and add 40 years to it. You're going to give the same reaction everybody does. I'll be long gone. Take your children's age and add 40 years to that. How old will they be?
Sam will be 72, and Silas probably 76.
So they're your age.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now, do they have grandchildren yet?
At the moment, they're not interested in having children.
Okay. So if you take it, your children could have children and your children's children could have children. You're my age, you're older than I am. We could have 4 generations on this planet within 40 years. I'm going to die at 102, retire at 100. Just so happens, I didn't plan this. 2063 is my 100th year anniversary. I'll be 100 years old.
Lots of stuff.
It's also this. Are you a Star Trek fan?
I'm sorry, no, not really.
Okay. Have you, in Star Trek, there's a time in which humanity has gone through bad times, and a guy takes a rocket, and I can't remember his name right now, and he goes into space, and he fires a rocket off, and he goes to warp drive. And the Klingons, and I got to look the guy's name up. The Klingons, not Klingons, the Vulcans see them, and you cannot mess with a society that doesn't have warp drive. That's the guiding principle.
Right.
Well, guess what year that was?
No idea.
2063.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it was by accidental. It was Zephyrin Cochrane. So it says Star Trek universe, Zephyrin Cochrane is credited with inventing the first warp drive, conducted the first successful flight of his ship, the Phoenix, on April 5th, 2063. Serendipitous. I did not pick that year for that. I was born in 1960. So we're going to, in a 40-year timeline, accelerate, rethink, reshape. It's not going to take 300 years like it did in society. And with people like you, Robert, and I'm being honest, I was hunting you. I'm a hunter. I said, who does Robert know who could bring capital, who could bring people? And that already has started to happen. We're looking for people like you that want to build, want to create, want to reshape, want to resee, look at new materials, look at agriculture, look at systems, look at society. They don't have to love the world. And this is something that people get. They say, I've asked, people have said, well, you work with such and such. I said, let me ask you a question. One of your children needs surgery. The number one person in the world you hate, like despise,
Of course, of
is the
course.
surgeon.
Yeah,
You would have the surgery.
of course.
So I'm not here political. We just need the right people.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so if go to our website, reach out to David at moonhut.org, David at David Goldsmith, go through the site, watch the video, connect with us, and come wanting to find a place, a home, in a future that we are building. Does that make sense?
Total, total. This is
Anything you've got.
no, and I'll make sure that that's also added to the description of the video podcast and the audio podcast. Let me just stop this.
Wait, no, before you stop, don't stop it yet. So, excuse me, what did you think of what you heard? Because you heard more today.
Oh, no, I did look at the several videos, and we've spoken at length. You have a very grand vision to make life better for everyone.
Different. Yeah.
And I don't, I have a little lesser vision of, I just want to make the financial system work for all stakeholders. So it's a
Oh,
little bit less ambitious because the financial sector are very predictable. They're the most predictable group you'll ever meet. But I still concerned about the 1.4 billion smallholder farmers who don't make a living and have to try to get by. The small, practical, boring stuff, the fact that people are very extractive only in nature and not willing to share. You have a very broad vision. You want everyone to benefit, not just you. You're not doing this to die rich quickly. That's not your motivation at all. So
No.
you're not extractive in that. You might attract extractive people to fund it because they'll get something out of it. But that was what I admired very much because you do have a vision that would benefit a large number, but you also understand very clearly that some things are going to change. You know, whether you like it or not, it's going to be different. And you're trying to change the mindset rather than the invention. Uh,
We're doing both at the same time.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
But you understand actually what it is to make a hole in the ground and
so
mining. I mean, most people have never been to a mining site. I mean, I
well,
worked on oil rigs in the North Sea and Iran and in Texas, so I know what it is to make a hole in the ground, the boring stuff.
it's rough work. So here's we're meeting where people where they are today.
Yeah, exactly.
What I believe, I'm going to say space people. I'm going to believe that a lot of sustainability people, they're not meeting where they are today. What they're doing is saying, you
No,
have to change today
yeah,
for me.
yeah,
You have to understand, I understand the future. And I'm saying, I get that, but what's your plan in between?
right.
And
It's the same.
there's no plan.
It's the same with people trying to convince others about climate risk. They were pushing sacrifice rather than resilience. So nobody wants to give up something. You know, you do, give up something. So you're not going to get people excited about that. But
Until, how do you get someone excited?
well, if they see the self-interest for them, that it might be better. And resilience is a much smarter way of getting a large group of people to embrace that. Corporations are all looking to try to be more resilient, where they think that climate is about sacrifice, doing less and earning less and having less.
The world hasn't, and I hate to say it this way, the majority of people do not build when there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Starting a business is extremely hard. People don't realize how difficult it is, and
Yeah.
we're moving 18 boulders at once. But the world doesn't. People don't tend to shift. They shift by experiences.
Mm.
So people will say, "Oh, I can't do that," and then they find out that their wife has got cancer, and they
Mm.
change like that.
Yeah, yeah.
If they say, there's no way, I can't put priorities on things, tornado comes and wipes out their house, and all they care about is their dog is alive. Seriously, but that's what
Mm.
happens is they say, did the dog get out?
You're right.
Well,
Yeah.
what about all those pictures and those things that you saved that were very valuable to you that you couldn't give up and you had to have that big house
Mm.
or a small house? It doesn't make a difference. I'm not picking on the size of the house. I'm picking on the personality. If you're trying to change people because you believe that you have a better way, the best way to do it is to ask questions.
Mm.
And people don't, they want to give the answer. You asked me some things, I had to give it today. I tried to ask some questions, but I'm trying to bring you in. Like, how many innovations have happened beyond Earth? Uh, I was in Hong Kong speaking, and this woman says, raise her hand. She says, David, uh, why are you spending all this money on space where you could be spending it on Earth and better causes? That's something I would hear from like your group. And so I said, can I ask you a question? People don't ask the audience questions when they ask them questions. I said, sure, sure. I said, can you tell how much have you ever seen anybody like wheelbarrow up to a rocket and shove money into a rocket and ship it up into space? She said, what do you mean? So it's a very simple question. You said we're spending money in space. How many times have you seen a person wheel up to a rocket and shove the money in and close the door? She was, we don't spend the money in space, we spend it on Earth. I withdraw my question. So
Mm.
3 minutes later, another guy raises his hand. And he says, you're working on all this space stuff. This is when we were more spacey. We have so many challenges on Earth. Why aren't you working on those? Can I ask you a question? Sure. What do you do? I'm in finance. And I said, I'd like you to be a farmer. I don't want to be a farmer. You like what you do? Yeah, I like what I do. I don't want to be a farmer. I said, so I think maybe I'm wrong. You're looking at me and saying, you're fairly intelligent. You're working on a project. I don't think it's worthwhile. What I'd like you to do is change how you build your future. And that would be important to me. And I said, I want you to change. And he looks at me and he says, I get your point. I'm trying to get something. And then I said, what do you do every day to improve life on Earth? And he said, I withdraw my question like the other one.
Mm.
I didn't have to convince them. I just asked them a question. And that's what I try to. You tell me we need to mine on the moon. Great, great. How many holes have we dug on? What does a miner do first? And I'll give you the answer now because you and I have gone over it. First thing a miner always does, besides finding the plant, is they dig holes. Core samples, bring them up to know what's in the ground. Great. How many holes do you think you do in a mine? I don't know, 50, 60? No, 300, 500. $50 million to $100 million to find out what's underneath the ground 4,000 feet deep. How many holes have we dug on the moon?
None.
We've gone 9 feet and the drill broke. So when someone says that we're going to grab an asteroid that's going through space, I say, on Earth, we can't fly by even with a helicopter and know what's underground. How are we going to go at 70,000 kilometers per hour past the rock flying through
Mm.
space and know what's underground? Well, David, we'll do it one day. I'm not asking that question. So we have to reshape questions. We have to reshape. We're not doing sustainability. We're learning to address, adapt, and evolve. We don't have a 17 mega sustainability goals.
Mm.
We have 6 mega challenges we have to adapt to, address, and evolve. We can't change those. And we have to build builders, the people who want to get up in the morning and do something. We need to get them together. And so you're good. What I can I ask why are could you be less cynical and work with someone like us to build?
Oh no, no, I wouldn't say I'm cynical. I'm an optimist.
Your
Um,
rehabilitation.
yeah, I basically I don't have grand things. I also like to binge watch TV, and
So do
not,
I.
and basically I don't like working with people that are extractive or rude. So I don't have great grand
But what
visions.
does that? Why are you comparing yourself? We have people, the people who work on our AI platform are not working. They don't even know what's happening on the mining side. The
Hmm.
people who are working on our patents, we have 23 law firms around the world helping us with office actions, and we have patents being filed, and they do only that.
Well,
The people who are working in agriculture are only working in
I think
agriculture.
the main thing is it doesn't inspire me.
Ah, that's okay.
So
So you
it's
bring your skill set.
what gets me excited. I enjoy much more, like you asked me, we're looking for connections. Making those connections quickly and easily doesn't cost me a lot of energy, gives me joy. But getting involved on your particular project, and I think it's very ambitious and brilliant and well thought out, but
No,
it's
no,
not
but you already
inspiring
see you.
me.
No, but see, you've already gone to the whole picture.
Yeah.
Remember, it's a 40-year plan. We're not planning on, we have people who've come and gone. We've had like 250, 300 people. We have 150 on the website. You've already engaged. See, you're helping in the area you can.
Yeah.
And that's all. We're not asking you to do
No,
all
I
the things
know,
that
I
I'm
know.
doing. So,
You didn't ask a lot of things. I said maybe these people might be beneficial at this phase.
and what did I do? I actually wrote the
Yeah,
email
I
for you,
know.
put
I was
together the
very happy.
pieces.
You're one of the few that
I
makes
put
it
it
easy
because
for me.
I wanted it framed a certain way for that
Yeah,
individual. So
yeah.
I did. But you fit into a category of connector. You're having us on a
Yeah,
podcast.
that's
That's right.
that's my role.
Our team is amazing. Shahar is a Pakistani biochemist, bio whatever. She's amazing. Adam, who does a lot of our intellectual property work, is amazing. Kyle, who's out of who you've ever gotten a text message from Amazon that says your package has arrived? He came up with that and built that for all of Amazon. He's on our team. He's amazing. We have amazing people, but they are in their lane where they're
Yeah.
happy. They don't want to do what I do. I don't want to do what I do. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah,
So
it's very exhausting.
it's
People
exhausting.
and thankless. People have
Well,
no idea the
I
effort
have,
that goes
I
into
have,
that.
yeah, I have a title. It's called CSO. Do you know what CSO stands for?
Well, it used to be Chief Sustainability Officer. I don't know what this one
Chief
is.
Shit Officer.
Okay.
What I do is what other people don't want to do because in a nonprofit, everybody works for a fee. No one works for free. So if they don't want to do it, somebody has to get it done. So I get it done. But it's very, very hard. This is a difficult job. I wouldn't wish it on
Absolutely.
anybody.
Absolutely. That's why you're better suited for it than for me. I
But
look,
I'm not a space person, which drives
oh, it's
people
okay.
nuts.
That's
Like,
okay.
how do you have the most in-depth detailed plans for the moon? It's probably because I'm the right person because I don't care about space. I care about creating mirth and reshaping. So you're already involved. You're involved at the
Just
way
don't tell
you're
my wife.
no, but you're involved in the way in which you're interacting with us. So you asked the question, I'm going all the way back to it. You asked how did they get involved? Well, you sent out emails to people and said you wrote to somebody, this is your new next best friend,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I thought was a really kind thing. You wrote to other people and you more or less said, I'm putting my stamp on this. I'm not going to be the one to build a box of the roof and go.
No, no,
I'm
no.
not the
Of course
agriculture
not.
person,
Of course
but
not.
you put a stamp behind it. So don't think of it in don't you're not supposed to be me. That's my
No,
curse.
no, no. I understand. I'm happy to help in ways that I can. I think it's a very ambitious program. I hope that it works. I don't know if I'll be around to see the finish line, but in the meantime, I'm happy to introduce you to
You
civilized
you
people
are
that are
seeing it.
willing to share.
It's starting already. The thing is, it takes longer to build. It's just the new types of rails. So you won't see it until you do.
Mm.
But when you do, that's what happens when new rails come. What happens is society is breaking, correctly, and then, ooh, wait, AI has been around for a long time. It's been around for decades. When you do Google search and it drops down and gives you the words underneath it, that's predictive typing. That's AI. That's an AI version. There are 300 disciplines in AI. But when it hit OpenAI, that wasn't an overnight success. That was decades of work to get to it. You're already feeling it, you just don't know it. What we're doing.
This, I'm